This question was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from TJ in Troy, New York. The talk in recent weeks about the Midnight Express's 35th anniversary has led me to subscribe to the WWE Network in order to watch 1983 Mid-South Wrestling. In December of 1983, after watching you dress down Boyd Pierce, the King Jerry Lawler wrestled on the show. Later on, he was also on commentary with Jim Ross during another match. I know it was common for stars to travel to different promotions back in the territory days, but what about performing commentary during television tapings? Did Lawler commentate anywhere else back then, or was it just a one-off with Mid-South while he was there?
Well, it was a one-off because it was not a working vacation, but a working business trip. And we've talked about this on the show. You know, when you had so many of the guys that owned the territories were big-name wrestlers. If they would go to other territories to have meetings with the promoter would generally want, you know, if the Sheik was coming from Detroit to Los Angeles to visit Mike LaBelle, the Sheik is going to work in the Olympic Auditorium, right? He's going to get an extra payoff, and LaBelle gets a fucking big star. That was during the trade. Watts had come middle of November. I think it was I just did an article. So I think it was November 13th or 14th of 83, a Monday night, had come to Memphis to see the matches at the Coliseum and picked who he wanted. And the very next taping, which was like a week later, whenever it was, the day before Thanksgiving, I believe that's when that was taped, because our first taping, Jerry Jarrett and Lawler went down also to have a meeting with Watts and look at his talent. And since Lawler was not only a top guy, but somewhat of a international star at that point, he'd been on Atlanta TV, he'd worked for Vern, he'd worked in Florida in the previous few years. So he was an asset just to have on Mid-South television, as, you know, a star from another area that you've heard about, Jerry the King Lawler. And because he was better at talking than anything else, you know, that Watts would have wanted to use him for, he put him out there for commentary because Lawler could get shit over. So, but that was just, that was part of the trade. And they didn't come back because they were there primarily to look at the talent and see who they wanted to get in return from the ones that they had let go.
Would that have been the first time Lawler and Jarrett came face to face with Lanny Poffo?
I sound like Lance now. You know, it was right about that time that Jarrett started talking to Angelo and they were making plans for Randy to come in, because that was very convenient. See, when Dundee went to Louisiana to book for Bill Watts, that made it a whole lot easier for Randy Savage to come in, because there had still been the issue with the parking lot, Pearl Harbor and the gun and the broken jaw and all that shit between Dundee and Savage. So,
yeah, and Bill Watts always says that he had a role to play, that he was in touch with Savage, and, you know, he played a video for him on TV. I think he was going to go in there, and he recommended to Jerry Jarrett to talk to Savage, according to Bill Watts.
That may be very well, because it was all happening at the same time. So, because Lanny was down there, and Randy might have come there, but it was Randy Savage was not a big star at that point. So Bill Watts wouldn't have said, "Oh, I got to get Randy Savage at all costs." It'd have been more like, well, you know, his brother's here and I'm doing a favor to his father because he needs a job type of thing. But it was natural for Savage to go to work for Jarrett because they'd been building that match with Lawler for fucking 6 years.
It's interesting to know how many guys left ICW and the first place they went was Mid-South. Roop, Orton, Crusher Broomfield ended up there as one-man gang, obviously.
Yeah. Well, Gang had no heat because ICW started him. He was just a kid that they found and groomed and broke in. So he really had no heat with any promoters, because even if you wanted to blackball some of the outlaws, that you blackballed the ones that were behind the office and behind the move, not, you know, just local guys that they found and broke in. But Watts was the only one. Well, think about this. They couldn't really, at the time, to be honest, once again, people don't remember, Randy Savage was not a big national star. So of the places that they might have had the opportunity to go to begin with, Florida was always, Eddie Graham was always close with Jerry Jarrett. Barnett in Georgia was always close with Jerry Jarrett. Watts may have been the closest territory that wanted to give him a chance.